Secretary, Sarama Nairobi. Mr. PSST, we welcome you to this press briefing on the quarter 3 expenditure releases for financial year 2024-2025. Very good morning to you all. On behalf of this ministry, I wish to welcome all of you to this press briefing and allow me to say Happy New Year to everybody who is here this morning. My name is Apollo Muninda, and I work as the Principal Communications Officer here at the Ministry. PSST allows me to invite the Acting Director of Budget, Mr. Hani Nashaba, who will make some welcome remarks and also introduce the key officials who are here with us this morning and also invite you to address the meetings. Thank you very much. Mr. Shaba.
Thank you very much, Apollo and ST. Welcome. Just to recognize really our partners we work with, mainly the Budget Transparency Initiative team. Here with us we have the Executive Director of CS-BAG, Mr. Julius Mukunda. Welcome you. But also alongside Mukunda, we got apologies, but we have representation from our court, whom you also know very well, been working with on the budget, and Siatini. This top management of this ministry here, most of the top technical managers are here as part of the press release. And let me just recognize just a few in the interest of time. The Internal Auditor General, Dr. Pixon Okoye, that's here. The Acting Director, who is myself. The Director of Financial Management Services, Mr. Godfrey Semgoma. The Director of PPP Unit, Jim Mugunga. Jim Mugunga is the ally of the press. You know him very well. The Commissioner Infrastructure and Social Services Department, Manja, Budget Advisor, the Commissioner for Project Execution, who is helping us to ensure that our projects are implemented very well, Mr. Oktoy. And then finally, we have Commissioner District Inspection from the Minister of Local Government, Mr. Palmer Stephen, who is also here with us. So, Mr. PSST, those are the people, first our stakeholders, but also the officials of the ministry who are here with us. And without further ado, let me welcome you to give your press briefing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My good partner, you are very most welcome, CS-BAG, always, and the other CSOs that are here. But of course, our team at the ministry that ensures that the economy runs in a proper, good way. All of you, members of the press, good morning to you all, and you're welcome to this briefing for the third quarter release of expenditure limits, or what we call usually budget release, the money we have released. So I wish to welcome all of you, the stakeholders, and the objective today is threefold. First, to brief you and the entire country on the state of the economy. Number two, to communicate the funds which we have released to government entities across for the third quarter of this financial year, which is going to run from January up to March, but also to provide guidance to accounting officers on the execution of the budget as was appropriated by Parliament. I will start with the state of the economy. First, with the growth of the economy. The GDP grew by 6.7% during the first quarter of this financial year. That is from July to September, compared to the 5.6% in the same period as of 23-24. So we have seen more accelerated growth of the economy. If we could go by that average, things are going to be very good this year. This growth was broad-based, mainly driven by food crop production in agriculture, agro-processing and construction in industry, and wholesale trade and transport activities in the services sector. High-frequency indicators of economic activity have continued to show further improvement in the first half of the financial year. The Purchasing Managers Index, which gives an indication of business operating conditions in the economy, was at 53.1. The Composite Index of Economic Activity, which is used to monitor economic trends, was at 170.65, while the Business Tendency Index, which gauges the views of the business executives on the economy, how they see it, was also recorded at 59.64. All of those I've mentioned were for December last year, which shows generally that Ugandans are getting more optimistic, but also the economy is improving in terms of those high-frequency indicators of the economy. When I turn to inflation and exchange rate, whereas headline inflation increased to 3.3% in December 2024 from 2.9% in November, driven mainly by increased demand during the festive season, the overall inflation of Uganda remains subdued and within the policy target of 5%. All of this is thanks to close coordination of fiscal and monetary policies. Our inflation is under control. Since the start of this financial year, the Ugandan shilling has maintained relative stability against the US dollar. In December 2024, the shilling appreciated by 0.4%, having traded at an average mid-rate of 3,664 shillings per US dollar, compared to an average mid-rate of about 3,678 shillings per US dollar in November. This was partly attributed, the stability in the shilling and its appreciation is partly attributed to increased remittance inflows during the month of December, as Ugandans working abroad sent funds back to their families for festive season, but also increased foreign direct investment, especially to the oil and gas sector, among other factors. On the external front, Uganda's total export earnings in quarter one of this financial year amounted to $2.262 billion, and this translates to a growth of 21.8% compared to the export earnings in the previous year's quarter one, which was $1.57 billion US dollars. This growth in exports was majorly due to coffee exports, as both the amount of coffee exported and the international price went up significantly. Additionally, other exports, including mineral products, flowers, simsim, tobacco, contributed to improvement in the amount of earnings from exports. Similarly, our import bill also grew to $3.161 billion in Q1 of this financial year, and this was on account of increased value and volumes of non-oil imports over this period. Those imports mainly the intermediate goods we use in industry. As a result of the higher increase in imports compared to exports nominally, the trade deficit between Uganda and the rest of the world widened slightly by 1.2%. That is to about $898 million in this quarter one of this year, from the $888 million in quarter one of 23-24 fiscal year. When I turn to foreign direct investment as well as remittances, for quarter one, remittances from Ugandans working abroad were $389 million, compared to the US dollars $360 million recorded in the same quarter the previous financial year. That is in the year of 2023-24. So this implies that there has been growth in remittances by 8%. The Ugandans who are working abroad, we call it sweeping abroad. They are sweeping abroad, they are doing a good job. They are bringing in more money. Similarly, foreign direct investment registered growth of 25.4% in quarter one of this financial year compared to the same quarter in the previous financial year. The total FDI in Q1 of 2024-25 was $799.5 million, compared to what we got in Q1 of 23-24, which was $637.6 million. I now turn to domestic revenue mobilization. By the end of December last year, government had collected domestic revenues amounting to 15.33 trillion shillings. 15.33 trillion shillings against a target for the half year of 15.01 trillion, implying that we have achieved a surplus in the first half of the fiscal year of 326.8 billion shillings. This performance is attributed to improved economic activity, but also improved tax administration. During the second half of this financial year, Uganda Revenue Authority, as well as the other revenue collecting institutions, are expected to collect a total of 16.65 trillion shillings. And having collected that, the cumulative total expected this year is 31.98 trillion shillings. That's what we expect to collect as domestic revenue, 31.98 trillion, and we're on track to achieving this revenue target. I now turn to the outlook. Based on the performance of the first half of the financial year, the economy is projected to grow between 6 and 6.5% this financial year. Additionally, it is projected that inflation will remain within the policy target of 5%, while foreign is anticipated to remain stable. All of these are supported by continued inflow of FDI, foreign direct investment, particularly in the oil and gas sector, but also from exports as well as remittances. On the fiscal front, domestic revenues are projected to perform at 100%. Highlights now on the expenditure release. I now turn to what we have released in Q3 for government entities. The Q3 expenditure limits for financial year 24-25 were derived from the quarterly work plans and procurement plans of ministries, departments, agencies, and local governments, as well as missions abroad, taking into consideration the projected resource inflows. For this quarter, which is going to run from January to March this year, a total of 15.64 trillion shillings has been released, and this represents 21.68% of the approved budget for this financial year. As a reminder, Parliament approved a budget of 72.136 trillion, of which 7.9 trillion is wage, 13.8 trillion is non-wage, 5.9 trillion is development by government of Uganda, 9.58 trillion is external financing for development projects, 34.6 trillion is for debt and treasury operations, and 293.9 billion was for local revenue. We have so far released now, out of the 72.137 trillion appropriated by Parliament, we have released a total of 55.551 trillion shillings. 55.55 trillion shillings. Cumulatively, that is 77% of the budget. The following are the highlights, the key highlights of where we have released the money for Q3. First, wage and salaries. We have released a total of 2 trillion and 44 billion shillings to cater for the wages and salaries across government. As you know, this is wage, salaries, pension, gratuity, they have the second call on the budget. After that, the second call is this item. So we have released the money to all entities to pay wage. On the non-wage, we have released the money as follows. Pension and gratuity, 283.28 billion shillings. We have also released 308.75 billion to local governments. And of this, 112.28 billion is education capitation grants to cater for the first term of the school year. The children about to go back to school, the money for their school fees is already paid. Then 36.6 billion shillings is for health institutions under the local governments. For wealth creation funds, we have released money as follows. PDM, Parish Development Model, we have released 529 billion shillings, which is half of the money for this year. It has been released. As we promised when we were releasing Q2, we said we shall release the first half in January. We have released it. 30 billion shillings for UDB, so that it can continue to facilitate those who are investing in development projects as we mobilize the external financing. We are about to, it is in a cabinet, actually out of cabinet, we are going to parliament to capitalize UDB by over 1 trillion shillings so that it can be able to support our ATMs, as I will indicate later. We have also released 31 billion for Uganda Development Corporation, UDC, to co-invest with the private sector. The funds for Emyoga were released in the first half of the year. We have also released 92.75 billion to all public universities, Uganda Management Institute, as well as Law Development Center in line with the Semester 2 requirements. We have released 45.77 billion shillings under Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to cater for the operational budget, particularly the subvention for the Social Assistance Grants for Empowerment, SAGE. This is money for our elderly, the old citizens of the country. Their money has been released. Health institutions have been given funds as follows: 35.9 billion shillings for referral hospitals, Mulago and Butabika. 6.84 billion shillings for Uganda Cancer Institute. 7.52 billion shillings for Uganda Heart Institute. 5.78 billion shillings for Uganda Blood Transfusion Services. 21.85 billion shillings to cater for the subventions, other subventions under the Ministry of Health, so that they can provide health to Ugandans. A total of 110.65 billion shillings has been released to NMS, National Medical Stores, for the purchase of essential drugs, medicines, and other supplies. And cumulatively, this brings the amount so far released to NMS to 584.08 billion shillings. 584.08 billion shillings. About 85% of their appropriated budget has been released. The 15% we shall release it in the fourth quarter. I now turn to the operational funds to keep the country safe and secure. Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs has been released under non-wage recurrent 348.3 billion shillings, so that our borders are safe, Uganda's enemies are kept at bay. Uganda Police Force to keep land order 83.38 billion under non-wage recurrent. Uganda Prison Services 40.11 billion shillings. Internal Security Organization 28.08 billion shillings. External Security Organization 18.71 billion shillings. Total transparency. This money is for security to keep us safe. I now turn to the ATMs. These are the key drivers of growth: agriculture, tourism, minerals, and STI. Under agro, 15.73 billion for interventions under MAIF, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. Then we have NARO, National Agricultural Research Organization, and the National Animal Genetic Resource Center and the Data Bank, NAGRIC. Of this money, we have also released 3 billion for Diary Development Authority. Remember, some of these have been rationalized: DDA, NADS, Cotton Development Organization, and Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Their money await approval of Parliament to move from the votes where they had been appropriated to MAIF. And the paper is before Parliament for approval this week. Once it is approved, that money will be, the expenditure limits will also be released. So under Agro, there is some money which is still awaiting approval of Parliament to authorize us to move that money from where it had been appropriated before rationalization to where these entities have gone. Under tourism development, 34.05 billion has been released for the ministry and UTB to promote tourism. Under the mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas, 83 billion shillings have been released to UNOC, Uganda National Oil Company, to continue investing in our oil extraction, but also to Petroleum Authority of Uganda, 4.65 billion to ensure that these activities in the oil sector are well regulated. Under STI, 85 billion shillings have been released for interventions under science, technology, and innovation, but also to support ICT and NITA. All of these monies I'm reading, they are for non-wage, to facilitate those entities to deliver the services. Now Parliament, we have released their money, 166.83 billion shillings, so that they can legislate good laws for all of us. Judicially, we have released 58.23 billion shillings to facilitate the judiciary to adjudicate all of the justice in Uganda. Auditor General of Government, 16 billion, to ensure that all these other monies we have released are tracked. Missions abroad, 115 billion, and this brings their total release to 100%. So for missions abroad, in order not to lose poundage, we have released all of their money. Now, non-tax revenue generating entities, these include National Citizenship and Immigration Control. We have released 16.05 billion. Uganda Registration Services Bureau, 5.26 billion. National Lotteries and Gaming Board, 2.08 billion. And Uganda National Bureau of Standards, 1.64 billion as non-wage. I now turn to the development budget. A total of 3.317 trillion shillings has been provided to cater for the development requirements in the country, both government of Uganda and externally funded. These funds have been allocated as follows, or released as follows. ATMs. These days, priority in development is on ATMs, tenfold growth. Agro-industry, mineral, tourism development, mineral development, including oil and gas, and then science, technology, and innovation, including ICT. Under agro, 52.3 billion shillings has been released for interventions under MAIF. That is the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. We have also NAGRIC and NARO. But the funds meant for DDA, as it was in the non-wage, DDA, Uganda Coffee Development Authority, these will be transferred to MAIF after the parliamentary approval. Tourism development, 4.66 billion for ongoing projects under the ministry, particularly for development of the Source of the Nile project. STI 40.92 billion for interventions under Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, as well as NITA-U. On the other hand, we have also released money to what we call the enablers of the ATMs, those which are going to help our ATMs to perform under the development component. Security, defense 469.16 billion, Uganda Police 78.89 billion for the construction of new apartment blocks for our policemen in Inaguru and Kotido, but also for the contractual obligations for intelligence systems and classified assets. State House 5.43 billion, Uganda Prison Service 3.54 billion for seed production especially, as well as other development projects they're engaging in. Those prisoners, they're actually doing a good job. They are building 2 silo facilities, storage facilities, but also constructing for prisoners some staff accommodation. The Directorate of Government Analytical Laboratory, we have given them 3.93 billion for the completion of the DNA bank and also paying the pending certificates. Another enabler is infrastructure. The Ministry of Works has been given 396.55 billion shillings for the implementation of the standard gauge railway, meter gauge railway, the Kabalega International Airport, and the Bukasa Port. Some of these projects, like the airport, they are about to be completed and so on. So we have provided them with the money to complete them. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has been given 243.34 billion to cater for rural electrification, to take electricity to the rural areas where Ugandans are, for transmission lines, but also for capacity charges for Electromax, and also for mineral development. Ministry of Kampala, Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs, we have released 111.58 billion shillings to implement the Greater Kampala Urban Development Program. That's the program, not a project. Improving the infrastructure in Kampala and ensuring that all of these roads which Kampala people are crying about, especially in the suburbs, are fixed. In a few years to come, Kampala will be restored to great sanity. There has been a lot of chaos in Kampala on infrastructure. We have a number of projects ongoing to restore the infrastructure in the city. On the human side, investing in people for development, 124.45 billion has been released to the Ministry of Education and Sports for Uganda Secondary School Expansion Project. This is a project which is building schools, but also for skilling projects and other contractual obligations which they have. Another 15.95 billion has been released for the capital development under universities, to develop infrastructure in the universities. 264.71 billion is for Ministry of Health, part of which is going to support Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunization, Global Fund, but also outstanding contractual obligations. 43.42 billion is for contractual obligations under Uganda Cancer Institute and Uganda Heart Institute. They are building those 2 key components of our health, the curative health section. Regional referral hospitals have been allocated 6.85 billion for development, while local governments have been allocated a total of 231.64 billion for development. And this is to support upgrading of health centers from 2 to health center 3, but also completion of seed secondary schools, as well as micro-scale irrigation projects. Finally, we have also released 17.54 billion shillings to Uganda Registration Services Bureau, the National Citizenship and Immigration Control, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, Law Development Center, as well as URA, for development purposes, not for the operation, but this one is for development. In conclusion, I would like to highlight the following. Number one, and very key, the Q3 release is in line with our continued effort as government to maintain aggregate fiscal discipline by moving resources from all the priorities and consumptive items towards the ATMs and their accelerator, or what we call enablers. As government, our main objective now is to promote technical efficiency across government by ensuring that all ministries, departments, agencies, and local governments deliver services to Ugandans at the lowest cost. As we put more emphasis on growth drivers as well as the enablers. Please go and tell all Ugandans, those who are in the business of spending government money, that now the budget of Uganda and the resources we have, which are very limited, are for growing the economy so that we expand the pie, but also providing critical services to Ugandans. That's why we put money in those priority areas of ATMs, but most importantly, the enablers. Security. Uganda can only grow when it is safe and secure. In infrastructure, bridging the infrastructure gaps, building the SGR, maintaining these roads, especially those roads which are linking the villages of Uganda which are producing to the city, where the market is, and other places outside the country. Then the electricity, particularly in the growth areas, industrial parks, the key cities and their industrial conurbations, the small towns which are coming up, which are industrialized across the country. Not just electricity for catching grasshoppers and so on, no, but mainly in the growth areas. And then irrigation, so that we stabilize agriculture and also protect the environment. Those are enablers of growth, as well as UDB, wealth funds, UDB, PDM. Those are the areas where we want to put money. So this tendency, the old tendency of, my budget is being cut, my budget has reduced, it means your priorities have run out of being priorities. They were all the priorities, they were priorities in the past, but now these are the priorities we are moving forward with. So I want you kindly, media, to guide very well the country that the budget now is redistributive, not just distributive. It redistributes money from the old priorities, from consumptive, and productive, towards ATMs and the enablers. Number two, all accounting officers are instructed to pay salaries, pensions, and gratuity by the 28th day of every month, as per the approved salary scales and our policy. Public servants should be paid on time, at most 28th of every month. Number three, in order to eliminate the accumulation of domestic arrears and penalties, accounting officers are directed to prioritize payment of service providers on time. They should stop committing government without a budget. And businesses should not provide a service to any government entity without a budget. Please, businesses, the suppliers, you also have a tendency of forcing contracts on accounting officers because you have a powerful person who's saying, no, accounting officer, sign this one. Please, this business must end, because it's partly why we have been having this problem of domestic arrears. Committing government by signing a contract where you don't have money as accounting officer. Going forward, we have already put in place mechanisms of identifying these accounting officers, beginning with the backlog we have, the portfolio we have, but also those who are going forward. No more of these games. They're going to be added to the budget games now, the commitment games. Whoever is engaged is going to be held accountable personally. Accounting officers are also required to ensure that every promotion of a public servant or redeployment made to a different cost center is backed up by adequate wage provision. Number 5, accounting officers are required to ensure timely submission of warrants to this ministry for approval. In the same vein, quarterly performance reports should be submitted within the timelines stipulated in the law. We shall not release money to any entity that has not accounted for the previous quarter expenditure, because that's where the fiscal indiscipline starts. And lastly, this Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is finalizing the full transfer of budget functions for the institutions which were rationalized, and upon approval by Parliament, the budgets will be transferred to the host institutions, and as a result, there should be no gap in service delivery. We have already started this process. It is at the tail end. When Parliament gives us a resolution transferring this money, your warrants should be ready. Those especially who are receiving the rationalized institutions, so that there is no gap in service delivery. We don't want to hear that an excuse that the reason why we didn't deliver here is because this entity was rationalized. There has been smooth transition. Once again, I wish to thank you, the press, but also our partners, the civil society, led by CSBAG, Accord and others. Our website is www.budget.finance.go.ug. But these days we don't suffer with the memorizing websites. Just Google. Google is for free. You put in budget Uganda. It will take you there. You click on it, where you are going to find more information about all of these things I've been communicating and others. You may also call our budget call center. We have a budget call center, and this is the number: 0800-229-229. I repeat, our free, you don't pay when you call it. is 0800-229-229. The government of Uganda pays on your behalf. You just call and ensure that you inform us. You give us clear feedback. But don't call for other social calls. Strictly for budget information, we shall give it to you. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, GSST, for that very clear information. Now, my pleasure to invite the Director,
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, PSST.
Happy New Year.
Once again, it is always a pleasure to be here to share with you our opinions and ideas about budget implementation, Chair. First of all, to say congratulations for finishing the NDP4. It was very protracted, but we finally finalized the process. Chair, also are promising, and we hope that we can be able to progressively achieve our targets on the ATMs and the 10 for growth strategy. Chair, a few things that I would like to bring to your attention, probably which you could also be able to address. One is that I have seen you are releasing extra money for the pension, around 203 billion, considering that we have, again, congratulations for carrying out the audit of the pension and gratuity. And considering that we have these gaps into it that have been highlighted, and now we continue to send the money, how sure are we that the money that we are sending is not likely to be wasted before we address some of the challenges that have been raised by the Auditor General's report? The second item, Chair, is that we still find issues of project implementation and challenges. When I look at your Q3 budget of almost 15 trillion, how are we sure that we are likely to actually consume this amount of money, considering the fact that we still have projects that have no feasibility studies, projects that have no concept notes, really projects that were not prepared to work? How have we ensured that the 15 trillion are going to, under Q3 really, is not actually being implemented and not to be particularly wasted? So that's another element that we think that you need to be able to look at. Another issue, Chair, is the slow operationalization of the EGP system. When we look at it, in the number of the planned entities, there should be around like 200, and by the Auditor General's report is saying that only 36 have been enrolled. Even these 36, a number of them still protrude outside the system. And we know, Chair, very well that this has been one of the flagship programs of actually ensuring technical efficiency, which you have brought up. Is there a possibility to know how and why we are really very slow at operationalizing the EGP system? Chair, whereas you have taken a bold step of amalgamating ROGREV and IRAS, the issue of human capital, HCMS and IPPS is still outstanding. Those entities that are on HCMS, sometimes they even use the IPPS system. And we believe that that is one way where leakages can take place, and it is throwing our payroll and pension reform system. Chair, you had promised some time back that we should, by now, we'll be having a tax governance, a tax expenditure governance framework, where we know how these tax exemptions are done. We believe we could have been done
Resources and spend them. But we are the ones who requested for this audit so that we can know
at the right time and the right amounts. And the Auditor General is going to tell us, like he told us on the wage. I want to tell you these days, I walk in office and my table looks happier because those letters I used to get every week, wage shortfall, this one, those ones have gone. Now the wage shortfalls which we're having were those that emanate from the need for bridging the other gaps which were already identified, and we are managing them quite well, plus enhancements which were done. But these people who used to over budget, others under budget, that business is now phasing away. So very, very helpful. So we shall await that and also sort out the pension and gratuity area. On the projects that were not started but continue to receive money, that portfolio is reducing. We are getting out of the PIP. It has been historical, a legacy kind of problem. We are reducing it. Our teams, especially at the one in charge of PIMS, working with NPA, working with other stakeholders, they have really improved. And I want also to thank for our leaders for the political goodwill to ensure that projects undergo public investment management. Right from the top leadership now, when people go, no, sign quickly here, we say no, first address is PAP, send your project there to undergo, and then DC sits and the development committee writes this the guide. These ones should go in the budget, these ones shouldn't. So that all the portfolio which has been disturbing us is phasing out. Within no time you will have now projects which are performing. But also we have put in place a unit which is helping us on a day-to-day basis to look out for the way projects are performing, and they highlight issues in time so that we can address them. Some of these issues, by the way, they were not big issues of PIM, but just laziness and people not human errors. Those ones we address them. Someone is not signing something, imagine, to sign so that the project can move. They put it there. These are some of the things. Somebody is abroad, he moves with the government. We are not allowing this. So some of these people help us to track them, and then through a phone call, things move. EGP system, we are overhauling this system. And this coming financial year, all entities of government are going on the system. We are working around the clock to ensure that we get the system to get all of them enrolled, and we stop this procurement in hotels, in rooms, and everything is going to be on the system. You wait, you are going to see. On HCM versus the IPPS, those gaps which are there, we are working with the public service to expedite also the HCM, so that IPPS can now be closed. They've had a program, a phased program, but I think we can expedite it and ensure that we get all entities on HCM. And with HCM, there are enough controls. There are good controls to manage the human resource related challenges, the human resource management related challenges. Tax exemptions, we have now in place a tax exemption rationalization plan. Is in place and it is guiding us. That's why you are collecting more revenue. That's why you are managing them better. We are recovering some of the revenue from these which are inefficient, but also supporting those which are efficient. I want to always emphasize
There will not be a day if we were dreaming somewhere that tax exemptions will be abolished or stopped. There is no economy in the world which does not give tax exemptions. They are given. But they must be efficient. They must be predictable. There must be a criteria. And all these are the things which were lacking. We have put them in place and they are helping us. Local government releases, the complaints of money going late, DB, you are going to utilize civil society, communicate through them the way we are operating. This money, now I've announced, we have released their money. I don't want to hear in June that the money has gone back to finance. Number one, there is no money which returns here. We just return expenditure limits we gave you. Expenditure limit does not mean money. But those expenditure limits can only be returned when the accounting office has failed to warrant money and commit it to certain expenditure. So the laziness of people and confusion, sometimes in these local governments, they have their mini parliament there, then they bring in politics, they quarrel, like in my own district there in Butambala. I should tell you, they were quarreling over which I think county should get which money. They spent about 2 months quarreling in the council. Now by the time they come, the quota has ended. And if they do that towards the end of the financial year, they will say the money came late. This business of money going late, utilize the civil society so that we can stamp out that thing of money going late. There is no money which goes late. Lastly, the economics of election cycles. That's what I prefer to call them. Be assured that we are very well cushioned, we are pragmatic in approach. Public expenditure management requires that we ensure 3 key things. The first one is allocative efficiency. During these periods of elections and so on, we allocate, as you can see the budget, and you have seen the framework paper of the next financial year, the voting year. The priorities are clear. And these priorities have been defined by the topmost policy makers of the country, Julius. Don't worry about the political speculations. Those who are in charge of the economy, we have clearly indicated the money is going for first ATMs, second enablers of the ATMs, and then services to Ugandans, particularly those areas which improve people's lives. And those are the areas where the resources are going. So we don't expect any distortions. But also, we are ensuring technical efficiency, delivering things at the lowest cost possible, the minimal cost. That's why instead of tarmacking every road, you know, this tendency of politicians promising people to tarmac every road, we can maintain the Maram Road in a good condition. Okay, there will be some dust, but you see dust, we are from the tropics. Dust shouldn't kill us. As long as the road is smooth, we can carry the food and other products to the market. So we do some maintenance at the minimal cost. And that money, we have already provided it in the budget. It is there. 1 billion per district, plus the money which is under road fund, now managed by the Ministry of Works, so that we can maintain these roads in a good state, minimal cost. When it comes to education, HE has guided, for example, encourage more public schools which are day schools, near the communities, as opposed to boarding schools, you will be, you know, the cost will be minimal. But now everybody, you find some people taking 6-year-olds to boarding school. Why do you Ugandans don't like your children? 6-year, 7-year-old in a boarding school to do what? To cry there? Yeah. Who will bathe? Who will look after this child? Now, these are the things which have been increasing the cost. Then curative health care. Ugandans, this tendency of saying, no, put more medicine, put more hospital here, we need to put more money in the preventive health so that Ugandans don't fall sick. When we provide more clean water and sanitation, we encourage Ugandans to wash their hands. Did you see the data from UBOS of Ugandans who wash their hands? You can check the data, you will see. Very few Ugandans wash hands. Others just look at the palm. They don't see germs they eat. Or they are not dirty. The germs are there. You can't see them with your eyes. You must wash with the soap. Now, those things, the way we eat, someone said, we look what we eat. Just look at someone. Once you see someone looking in a certain way, that's what you eat. So those what we eat, where we sleep, how we, you know, these are the preventive things, and exercise and so on. Those are the things which we are going to be emphasizing, putting more resources there than pouring more money in hospitals, you know, the way everybody is saying, build more ICUs. You know what ICU is? Once you enter that ICU, that means you are very near heaven. Very, very near. That's why it is cooler, calmer. You are near heaven. So we shouldn't invest in ICUs. Instead, we should be investing more in people not going to ICU. Food safety, aflatoxins, removing them from our food, exercise, and so these are the things which I would want us as a country to focus on. That's how those countries we admire, some of them. Like those East Asians we talk about, when you go to Singapore, every morning, every Singaporean who is able-bodied is out on the road running. From 5 a.m. through allocative efficiency, technical efficiency, but also managing the political economy of our budget to ensure that we remove budget games. Budget games. Entities like this tendency of going to allocate the budget from Parliament. That one we have addressed it, and I hope all accounting officers whom we already guided will not make that mistake again. Parliament is allocated by the executive and appropriated or authorized by Parliament. If there are some areas where you have very good priorities, key priorities, but they don't have resources, take them to the executive leadership to find a solution. Once that solution is not there in terms of money, you can postpone it. You shall not die. The sky will not fall simply because some small unit in a sub-county has not been built. But this tendency of saying no, now cut money from somewhere and put it here, those things have been distorting budget and they create problems. That's why sometimes we have so many units which are unfinished out there because they were not planned and they don't have resources. Thank you very much. I thought I should make clear a number of those areas. Okay.
Thank you very much, SSG. I know you're hard pressed by time, but we request that you at least entertain 3 or 4 questions from members of the press.
No, I will entertain their questions. That's why they are here.
Okay. As usual, you mention your name and your media house and you post your question. One question for a person.
Mandela. Okay. Microphone.
When you gave your speech, I did not hear how much you're going to cater for domestic debt.
For domestic debt.
The funds that are domestic debt.
Okay.
Hakim? Good afternoon. From NBS team. This precedes typically election year. The electoral commission has been in front or before the parliamentary committee speaking about funding shortfalls and for the next budget. What is an influence of Ugandans relating to budgetary funding or funds towards the electoral commission so that it is able to organize the next elections efficiently. This particular release has indicated for the EC. I don't know whether it is well funded because it is updating the voters register. We'll be happy to hear from you.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, my name is Olwen. I work with UBC. You repeatedly talked about promoting technical efficiency. But if you look at the Auditor General's report of 2023-2024, there was a balance of 1.4 trillion shillings as unutilized warrants. And this is leading to underperformance. So what is your office doing about the aspect of underutilization of warrants? Because even Mr. Mukunda was talking about the implementation of the projects. When you release this money, there is underutilization of warrants. What are you doing about it? Because you've repeatedly talked about money, and you've had stories where money is returned to the ministry from local governments. What are you doing about it? Because it seems to be recurring. And then the fiscal deficit remains high. You've talked about domestic revenue continuing to grow, but then also the expenditure of the government keeps on growing, which leads to high dependence of debt. So how are you dealing with this issue of high dependence of debt? Thank you.
Okay, done.
That's
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nelson Mandela. First of all, wonderful name. Congratulations. Now Nelson Mandela is wondering, why am I not catering for domestic debt? You wanted me to allocate money for it? I'm releasing money. Maybe what you're asking is how much money have we mobilized from the domestic market. I think that could be your interest. I will provide that. I have the numbers. We on schedule as the budget was approved by Parliament. We on schedule. That's why I have the money to finance the budget. But I picked out the highlights of those areas which I thought are very critical. But the only thing you have reminded me is really also to tell the markets out there that number one, government of Uganda does not borrow money at all the cost or at any cost. Government of Uganda only borrows money, particularly domestically, and even externally at affordable cost of money. That's why last year, for example, we had programmed to borrow some money to support the budget, to add on the revenue. When the interest rates were high, we cancelled the borrowing. We cancelled it and instead reduced the amount of money we released. And as I always say, you can see Uganda is here. The economy has grown even faster. The skies are up there. We haven't died, but we cancelled $448 million, which we were supposed to borrow, but the cost was so high. We said, no, we shall not die, leave the money. So tell the markets, we are not going to change that policy here. We only borrow money when the cost of money is reasonable. We are not very, very desperate state. Hakim Wampamba, Electoral Commission, was communicating funding shortfalls for next elections. I want to assure you that Uganda will have very well-funded elections next year. That is the answer I can give you. There will be elections funded, but optimally, we are not going to carry out elections at any cost. The cost of these elections will be managed, but we shall fund the entities adequately, as we have always done. Orange, the Aegis report is showing 1.4 trillion unutilized warrants. First, I don't have the figures of the AG, but even if that were true, I don't see any problem there. On my technical efficiency, I would have seen problems if there was more money spent by these people. But if they are returning expenditure limits, because they are failed to spend on them, I know there is a problem, but it is a much better problem than the other problem. If they were wasting the money and they don't provide the service. I know the cost is that they did not provide that service to Ugandans worth that amount. But from the Treasury, and I'm in charge of Treasury and balancing the balance sheet of Uganda, if they are like that, I will get those accounting officers, but at the same time, I do not see a very big challenge there. You know, in economics, some things are very interesting. What you are looking at as a problem sometimes could be a silver lining in some instances. You need sometimes to be very careful. What I don't want in Uganda, I want to tell you one thing, is spending money we don't have. I don't like that. I don't want us as a country to go and spend money this country does not have. I've told you there are some things we budget for, but if we don't have the cash and we don't give the cash to the entities, they don't do those things, okay, it is a big problem. But as I always tell you, the country continues to move on. We don't die. I see people as if their lives depend on spending money. No, we must spend, and it's a problem in Uganda. Not at government level, even at personal level. You see someone as if he's on a mission to spend the last shilling he has. He's restless until he's broke. We must really develop the culture of saving, of managing expenditure. The quickest way to double your money is to fold it and put it back in your pocket. That is some of the wisdom I used to learn when I was still in the other side. If you want to double your money, don't work so hard. Just reach where you're going to spend, change your mind. Fold your money, put it back in the pocket. You have doubled it. Because you are going to lose it, now you have your 10,000 shillings back to your pocket. Some people think it is working so hard to make a lot of money if your expenditure is not controlled. And that is the discipline I would want us to have. So, and that feeds well in your concern of the rising fiscal deficit, as well as the implication it has on the debt. Some of these were because of, number one, we were in a few years gone by, we had a problem of gaps in revenue collection. That is number one. Revenue collection. Collecting about 13%, now 14% of GDP is a problem. It's not that government is really so fiscally indisciplined, but the revenue itself is underperforming. GDP is the wealth of which has been created. But now, out of that wealth created, government has taxed, received back about 13–14%. The average to have an optimal budget under PEM, the Public Expenditure Management Frameworks, is about 25%. You need to have about a quarter of your GDP in revenue. Those countries which we talk about, look, and this one, you can't check the tax GDP ratios. So our first major discipline in Uganda is collecting low revenue, mainly because of revenue administration gaps, but also the tax policy gaps. And we are fixing this to collect more revenue. But number two also, the allocative efficiency, because that means there are certain things which you could trade off, but you are finding it difficult to trade them off. They take resources, and yet you have priorities to spend on. So you have to borrow for the priorities when you are not trading off, learning the culture of trade-offs. That's why I was telling you, use my money here is a problem. People thinking that now you are given a priority, you must get more money all the time. That's not how we run a home. For example, in the home, when you have to take children to school, to pay school fees, like now, school is about to resume, there are certain things the family heads are trading off now. Drinking beer, they are not going to functions. Some have packed the cars to first get fees to pay. That's how we live lives of limited resources. But in the government, we want to eat the chicken and at the same time have to pay school fees. That's not how we do it. We must trade off. So those are the areas which will be a process. It's going to be a marathon, but I want to tell you we shall get there by enforcing those two things: allocative efficiency, plus now technical efficiency, and then revenue collection. This other problem of borrowing will go away, because you only borrow because you have a revenue shortfall or when your expenditure is not traded. You know, you want everything, everything to receive more money. Those are the things we are working on as a ministry, and we encourage all the government entities to adhere to. All right, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, SSG.
Oh, my team is saying they have some, the information kit. They have some, the Times, Ministry of Finance Times here. It has all the information that you need about the ministry. These things I've been talking about. It is the information that you need, the latest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is mine. This is for this.
in charge. Running off from something. But are those people?
Thank you.
You too, for inviting us.